Hey everybody, my name's Ed. Okay, so we're going to do another quick film review. Okay, so this time it's going to be One from the Heart from 1981. Okay, so this was directed by Francis Ford Coppola. It's starring Terry Garr, Frederick Forrest, Natasha Kinski, and Raul Julia. The film is about a couple who's on the verge of a breakup. They each meet other people in Vegas and have a special night with them. Each has to decide how to move forward. The movie is an artsy, sort of quasi musical with songs by Tom Hanks. So now, Francis Ford Coppola is one of America's most critically acclaimed directors, probably mostly known for his 70s and 80s work rather than his more recent output. He was one of the new generation of directors that changed the industry during the 1970s, like Martin Scorsese, Brian De Palma, Woody Allen, Robert Altman, etc. Coppola rose to international fame with the Godfather movies, The Conversation, and Apocalypse Now. He continued to gain attention with The Outsiders, Bram Stoker's Dracula, Cotton Club, and others. His career's gone through ups and downs, and over the years, he's gone back and forth from experimental films to more obviously commercial endeavors. So the plot to One from the Heart is pretty basic. On their fifth anniversary, a couple named Franny and Hank, they realize that the relationship is stuck in a rut, and they get into a big fight, and they seem to break up. They separately go to Las Vegas, and they end up meeting other people. So Franny meets Ray, who's a singer and a waiter, and Hank meets Leela, who's a circus performer. Each couple has a special night together, and then consider whether or not to go forward with their new partners and what direction their lives should take. So Franny and Hank have humorous encounters with their best friends, while Tom Waits' music, some of it sung by Krista Gale, plays along to most of the scenes. Now, while Ford has done lighthearted and fantasy films earlier in his career, the movies that made Coppola famous, like Godfather, Apocalypse Now, kind of made social commentary or commentary about family or human relationships, and were pretty heavy dramas. So with One from the Heart, he switches things up again with a musical fantasy, but it isn't quite as deep as his other films. Franny and Hank break up, they meet others, complain to their friends, and maybe they do, and maybe they don't get back together. Coppola mostly plays things lighthearted, so there's a fair amount of humor and even a wacky slapstick scene where Hank tries to spy on Franny and Ray. The acting by Gar, Forrest, and Julia is good, and while they are able to kind of round out their characters, the movie doesn't really wrestle with their relationships or affairs in a terribly complex way. So now the film looks amazing. A lot of credit has to go to cinematographer Vittorio Storaro. Storaro. Sorry about that. So he's done work for Apocalypse Now, Dick Tracy, Last Emperor, and others. It's got some very interesting editing, interesting use of composition and scene setups, and interesting transitions. The movie is full of bright, bold colors. The scenes visually really pop. And, all of these street scenes and buildings and sets were built on Coppola's Z-Trope Studios, which was a risky experiment. Z-Trope is Coppola's own studio, which has either produced or distributed multiple films over the years since the 70s. Coppola had to use much of his own money and search for investors to finance the movie. Now, the movie was pretty much a flop when it was released, and I can see why it didn't connect with an audience. It feels like an art film rather than a normal musical. And while Tom Waits is a fascinating songwriter, his music is kind of this offbeat mix of like jazz and blues and pop and rock and vaudeville. So he's great, but Tom had kind of a cult audience at that time when disco and mainstream rock and pop were on the charts. So his name alone wouldn't have brought in mainstream crowds, by itself. And the movie, aside from the visuals and the music, I'd say it doesn't have a terribly engaging plot. Again, it's light and funny in spots, but it's not very heavy on its own. Okay, so to wrap up, One from the Heart, directed by Francis Ford Coppola, while not a great film, it's definitely a very interesting movie. Again, I can see why it wasn't a hit while it was released. The visuals are fascinating, and the acting is mostly good, but the story is kind of thin. And the songs, while intriguing, aren't the usual rousing feel good numbers that people normally expect from a musical. Having said that, the cinematography is great. The film does take chances. So, one from the heart, while not up to Coppola's classics like Godfather, Apocalypse Now, but it is an intriguing movie if you're into film or a fan of Coppola's. Okay, so then that's it. I've got to thank you very much for watching. I do appreciate it. You have a great day. Thanks.